What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Boozer here. In today's video, I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Biohack here to my right. Biohack, as you guys may or may not know, he actually is a very top ranked live arena player. I got him on the channel today to actually do an account, kind of like a takeover review style for myself in terms of basically just bringing my account up to speed for the current live arena meta. I've been kind of out of it. I'm kind of washed up. I've been, maybe 6 or 9 months of very lackluster play. A lot of it comes down to daylight savings time. I just couldn't really find the time to do it in the schedule that we had available. But now, since live arena is such a big thing going on, we got the 5 battles per day. And of course, we get the extra loot, which is really important from these chests. So definitely a lot of emphasis going into live arena recently. So I figured it's a good time to revamp everything. And it's a good time to actually showcase kind of a smaller content creator like Biohack here, but he's obviously very well known in the live arena community. So everybody welcome Biohack.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
I've been watching your stuff for a long time, so it's awesome that we get to do this collab.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I'm super happy for you to be here, man. So, obviously Biohack here, just a little bit more about Biohack. It's very easy to obviously sell this guy and hype this guy up. He's on the leaderboards. He's been hovering around the top 50 for probably a good year or so. I remember when we first fought each other, maybe like, at least a year ago. I think I took one game from you, 1 or 2 games, and then I've played you since, and I've got absolutely I didn't even get a turn. So obviously your account has been light years progressed in the last year or so. So there he is, ranked 44. This guy's got 13,000 battles, like 10,000 more battles than me, still sustaining a very sustainable win rate. As long as you're over 50%, that means you basically belong in this ranking. That's what it means to me, at least. So Biohack, definitely one of the best in this format. So happy to have you along, and happy to hear what you have to say about my own account. I'm not going to be shy. Obviously, my account has been, basically collecting a little bit of dust in terms of an end game account, in terms of upgrading stuff. So what do you want to see first, or how would you want to approach somebody that's kind of like, hey, I got some champions. I need a bit of an update on them.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I went back and watched some of your old live arena videos, but it's been a while. So since you've uploaded anything, so maybe we could just go through what your top champions are, sort of like the way I like to think about live arena, because we have this whole draft phase, is you kind of have your go-to champions that you pick in the opener in the beginning, right? And then you have your sort of niche picks that you use to counter. So maybe if we talk about some of those opener picks that you have, what your go-tos are when you
Yeah.
get first pick and second pick and so forth.
Yeah. Totally. When I describe some of the live arena stuff, when I'm playing and I'm drafting, usually my first 1, 2, and 3 picks are more generalist, because I try to save the 4 and 5 picks for more specialized picks. I got some, obviously pretty fortunate, good generalist champions. So I'll show you guys what I'm using right now. So usually, if I pick first, of course, you gotta pick Armanz here, right? So let's see here. So Armanz, we got supersonic with the 4-piece stone skin. He's rocking 327 speed with 621 accuracy. Sorry, Biohacks. I'm gonna move your face a little bit just so we can show the stats. But yeah, so we got Armanz here. He's gonna be my first pick, basically 95 out of 100 matches. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Armanz is the meta. We're seeing him get picked first a little bit less at the very high end, but those are the people who have every mythical in the game. So yeah, I think both for you and for me, Armanz is going to be the pick pretty much every time. He's If you don't pick him and you let the enemy pick him, it's kind of like you're in a really bad spot too. So even if
Yeah.
you don't necessarily want Armanz a lot, it's really important just to not let your opponent have Armanz. But yeah, if we so I see you have him in Supersonic. I love Supersonic on Armanz. It's a great set. Supersonic Stone Skin is pretty nice. I'm curious, at your level, how frequently do you actually cut in? Because his speed is okay. But I'm curious, if you go against a Siphi with Crixia or something like that, is he actually going to get a turn to cut in before the lockout most of the time, or how does that work?
I actually don't I don't get him through the draft phase very often.
Fair enough.
And I've had some matches where he's been able to cut in, but they're few and far between. But
Mhm.
obviously, I pick him basically whenever I can, not just against Siphi. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's maybe a small sample size when he actually cuts against somebody's Siphi that I get him through. So
Yeah, that's fair. That's
yeah,
one of the things about building Armanz is you're like, do you really want to put your best gear on Armanz when he's never going to make it into the fight most of the time anyway?
yeah, that's right.
So yeah, that's definitely a consideration. But yeah, in terms of the build, like it's pretty good for sure. Especially, I think you tend to mostly run go second strategies. If
Yeah,
is that still
mhm. My team's not
how
fast enough.
fast is your fastest champion if you put your best speed gear on someone? Out of curiosity.
If I put my best speed gear on like Siphi, for example, she's about
Hmm.
420 ish, 4
Okay.
421, 422, I think.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
but I don't think that's fast enough. And it Siphi would be pretty squishy if I put her in my fastest gear. She would probably
Hmm.
lose maybe like a third of her health. So
Gotcha.
yeah, so segue into like my Siphi here. So this is my
Hmm.
Siphi. I got her in 4-piece stone skin. She's a little bit obviously slower, lower speed, but she's a bit more tanky. Like I
Hmm.
said, with without the stone skin, just pure speed, she'd be like 70k HP, so she'd be a lot squishier. But
Hmm.
yeah, 375 here. Yeah.
Cool. So with the Stoneskin Siphi build, like, what is your? Are you mostly just trying to bring her in for that like 100% turn meter revive, or like what's she doing for your team most of the time?
Most of the time she just brings in the block debuffs. That's I finding that very, very important.
Hmm.
And then I find like obviously a little bit of Terminator boost. The increased speed is nice. Trying to connect with my secondary champion. Her A1's really good, but I don't think about using that specifically just for her. Obviously a
Hmm.
little bit of the reviver, but obviously not top priority. But so it comes down to her, Terminator boost, block debuffs. I think for me.
Hmm. But you're using that sort of after the enemy has taken a turn.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes
Yeah.
she goes
Cool.
first. Sometimes she goes first. So it really depends on what she's up against. But honestly, Siphi, we were talking about like our first 1, 2, 3 picks. She's
Mm.
gonna be either my second pick after Armanz. So if someone picks Armanz first, I'll pick Siphi right away.
Mhm.
Um, and if I go first, then I pick Armanz. And if Siphi's available next, then I pick Siphi. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. How are you finding the Marius meta? Like now that Marius is in the game, Stoneskin obviously is still good, but it's definitely not as difficult. Like, I mean, there's ways to get around it now, especially both Stoneskin and with bombs. So have you been doing a lot of fights in the last like few months? And how has that kind of changed things?
yeah, so I recently just got Marius maybe like 5 weeks ago, and
Hmm.
then I finally built him out, and I was playing around with him. I love this guy. This guy's incredible, and
Yeah, it's so good.
yeah, he's incredible, and yeah, he's actually made it like live arena a bit more fun because he's a
Hmm.
pretty strong weapon against some stronger champions.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I have been feeling a little bit that Stone Skin maybe is not as necessary, maybe just for nukers. But I definitely have been feeling like you gotta go fast. You gotta go fast. You can't
Yeah.
let those bomb teams like go first. Otherwise you're just done. So
Yeah. That's something that I kind of as we talked about like, how you want to build things is I got to get a sense for like what kind of teams you're fighting a lot. Because in high-end live arena, it's like dominated by Shuzen, Commodus, Odin, like just these really, really fast teams that are just bombing you or using Marius to strip your stone skin. And so that's kind of changed the meta a lot where you can't just build everyone in stone skin and have them actually ever get to take a turn. But it's sort of a scenario where you need to build some like multiple options because things like bolster, bolster kind of fell out of the meta because of Narcies, but against bombs or against Marius, bolster's kind of your better option.
mhm.
So yeah, thinking about that in terms of like having multiple options for what kind of offense your opponent is bringing to counter it, yeah, whether you want to go bolster, whether you want to go stone skin, that kind of thing. Do
Yeah.
you have any champions built in bolster out of curiosity?
So
I know as a free to play, you probably
Yeah.
don't have a ton of it.
So I have one champion built in bolster, and the bolster gear is decent, but obviously
Mhm.
nothing crazy. And it's Nekrit. So I have Nekrit.
Necrit.
He's built in
Nice.
bolster and stone skin, and
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, you know, HP glove, and then obviously like as much speed and HP as I can get on those pieces.
Mhm.
I don't use him too often, but I recognize that because he's kind of like my only shield champion, that if I see bombs, I kind of have to bring him.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't have much flexibility with the bolster gear because it's basically all I have. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
But yeah,
got a little bit. Oh yeah, HP gloves with HP percent. That's good. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's not bad, but hold on, I'll show you my post. Like that's about it. I
Yeah.
don't have much here. Like this
Yeah.
one.
Oh, you, I can see that you're using that top row to basically fill out the set bonuses, and obviously those are less important than the gloves and the
Yeah,
or the chest and the boots if you're
exactly,
trying to just pump HP. So yeah, as long as you've
exactly.
got one. Oh,
Like
there's an HP. Yeah,
like this is a
nice.
good boot for.
That's a good one.
It's a good one,
Yeah.
but it's just slow, right? So
Yeah.
this one
Yeah.
has double speed here, right? But yeah, this one's a good boot, but I could probably use this one in place of, I don't know, one of these top pieces, maybe an update for his build. But what do you think about bolster or stone skin for Nekrit? Or
Yeah, so I think bolster. I mean, again, it's sort of like it depends on who you're going to use them against. But Nekrit again because of Narcisse fell out of the meta so hard. But I have one and I use him every once in a while. And yeah, I'm thinking mostly just heavy bolster these days to deal with Marius and the bomb teams, basically.
mm,
Um, yeah, I mean, but putting him in stone skin and bolster is obviously great if you can do both, right? Why not? Although
worse
I
against
think there
bombs,
is
or
what's that?
worse against bombs?
Yeah, it's a little bit worse against bombs. So that's sort of a consideration as well. But the nice thing about the bombs is that they don't hit super hard, so you're building them with a ton of HP anyway. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I guess it just depends. You could also go triple reaction and full bolster and drop the stone skin. It depends on just how you're using him.
How does
Um,
reaction work against bombs?
it doesn't work
It
against
doesn't
bombs at
bomb, right?
all. Yeah, it's just against everything else.
Mm,
Yeah, you can get the benefit. Like it's, obviously Stone Skin would be better because it gives you, they can't hit you, it can't kill you through it. But it's so weak to bombs. So if you want someone you want them to survive if they do try and nuke you with something, but you don't want to put them in Stone Skin because you want to use them primarily as a bomb counter. Then I've been using a lot more reaction lately on a number of champions to deal with that
okay.
just to try and keep people out of stone skin, especially if you look at, I mean, the most meta, I don't know how much you fight him, but the most meta bomb champion right now and the strongest one is obviously the mythical
Hmm.
Commodus, and his ability basically instantly activates the bombs if he has more HP than the target that he's putting the bombs on. So building like super high HP nukers in reaction is one way to kind of get through those bombs.
Okay.
Because they won't then activate instantly, and then you can cleanse them off or just get extra turns before the bombs actually go off. So I can't remember if that's in his passive or if it's in the ability. Yeah,
Ability.
instantly activates the bombs on enemies with stone skin or whose HP is less than this champion's. So that can be one way is high HP nukers.
Okay.
And then I like to put them in reaction to deal with, um, and like Marius, for example, if they're running Marius and bombs, you can have the reaction to help deal with the Marius, and then you can have the bolster to help deal with the bombs.
What about speed for somebody like Nekrit? Just keep them slow, or does it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If you're building speed Necrit, I feel like what you really want to use is that like that A2 for the ally attack.
Hmm.
That's the main reason to put him quick. Mine, I have him really slow personally, and part of that is just to extend the reaction. Um, but I think it kind of depends on who you pair him with. If you pair him with someone who has really good A1, like maybe even if like you had a Marius and he was protecting the Marius, and you can ally attack and bring those A1s in and potentially enfeeble people, that could be strong. It's just tough because so much. Everyone's in stone skin these days and that kind of thing. So I don't know how much value you get out of making him fast. I think your speed is probably fairly reasonable around 200, to be
Around
honest.
200. Okay.
And again, if you're going to be using him as a bomb counter, you really, really want to pump that HP up super high because you want him to have more HP than Commodus, so that the bombs won't go off. Yeah, so 123 is going to get probably most Commoduses. If I look, one of the things I like to do when I'm trying to build my champions is I'll go look at like Crusen's account and like his build videos and look at things like how much HP does his when he's building Doc Moreau's Commodus, how much HP does it have, right? And around 120, 130k is pretty common for these high-end players. So pushing that HP up as high as you can be really beneficial just to avoid that activation on his passive ability or on his bomb activation.
Okay.
When he has more HP. So
Okay. Yeah. So usually, like I said, I'll usually go with Siphi, and then I'll go right into the Marius. So I'll go Armanz, Siphi, Marius. So really loving that like top three pick.
Yeah, if you can get those three, that's huge.
Yeah. So I'm really loving that. What do you think about my Marius here? He's freshly built, and he has some of my best DPS, like defense DPS. He only has a 1-star blessing. So
yeah, the blessing is huge on Marius because he really wants so many stats. He wants attack crit rate, or not attack, defense crit damage, crit rate. But the accuracy from the blessing is, I guess, he wants all the same stats a normal nuker wants, but he also wants that accuracy, I guess is the point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think the Marius build is good. It's in stone skin. Good defense, good crit damage. Accuracy is maybe a tad low, but it's probably not the end of the world. He's probably, I mean, he does give the 50% accuracy buff to himself before he uses his A2. So, that is not, it's not like he's literally going to be hitting people with 265 or whatever you have there. It's going to go up to 380 or something like that. But yeah, you probably will fail to strip a lot of the supports that have resistance. So
I literally have no accuracy on any piece of gear.
Oh yeah.
Literally no accuracy substats. I was just looking, I'm like, even the jewelry, no accuracy substats. And then not even accuracy banner, just this the ascension
accuracy ascension. Yeah. So I mean, you'll know this, but I'll tell it to everyone else. Like certain pieces of gear can only have certain stats on them. So, for example, your weapon slot is a good one to get an accuracy substat on if you can, because you can't roll defense percent. So, like, that's a perfect amulet or a perfect weapon for a champion like Marius. It has crit rate, crit damage, and speed, which is what you need, and you can't get defense. So, obviously, if you could get accuracy instead of that resistance, that would be like basically a perfect piece for a Marius. And then your amulet as well is a good place to pick up accuracy if you can get it. But obviously you want them in stone skin, and you've got a crit damage 6-star stone skin amulet. So I would be kind of surprised if you have a better one, since that's a pretty rare piece.
No, it's these are slim pickings, 5 stars, and just slim pickings. Like I'm starting to cycle through some of the 5-star stuff now that we have more chests and stuff. So the 5 stars being going to be cycled out pretty soon here. Definitely. I'm like basically building him, anticipating that I'll get the 5 and 6-star eventually. That takes a long time too. The blessings and stuff. What do you think? Gonna segue a little bit here. What do you think about blessing choice for like a 6-star for like a I'm free to play, so I don't buy any whatever. But like for a low spender or free to play, what would you prioritize for 6-star? So for me, like my first 6-star ever was Rhodos. And then I went with Taras.
Yeah.
And then I went with Trunda, who is part of my Hydra squad. And then after that, I'm working on my 4th 6-star. And I was working on Siphi for a long time. And then I stopped at 5, which is, just sunk cost at that point. But I figured, she's not going to get that much value outside of Live Arena for me. Like I don't use her like everywhere. So I was just kind of trying to prioritize like, I can use this champion everywhere. Ideally get maximum value from the 6-star blessing. So I switched to Harima as my next 6-star that I wanted to do because I do use her for Hydra and stuff with my Kage for damage. But now I'm thinking like maybe I don't do Harima anymore, because I have Marius now, right? And
Yeah.
Marius is gonna gobble up a lot of the defense gear as well. Um,
Yeah.
I also have Ayasu as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I also have
Yeah.
Ayasu.
Yeah.
It's just
How
yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah, he's an interesting champion. I imagine you'll have a hard time using him um in go second teams, right? Because
Yep.
he's pretty squishy.
Yep. I have a
So that would be
Georgia.
my
I have a Georgia
yeah.
as well. So Georgia was I didn't use Georgia for a long time in live arena because I couldn't get the accessory pieces together for Stone Skin. But I
Mhm.
recently got it and I put him together. He's solid.
Nice.
I don't use him as much. Like he's solid. He could
Yeah.
be faster.
Yeah.
But he's 4-star blessed. He could be faster. But he has the Stone Skin, so at least he's
Mm.
usable. He's usable.
Yeah.
So I will have probably the same problem with Ayasu. I'll be looking for the Stone Skin accessories to fill him out. Most likely
Yeah, for
lethal
sure.
Stone Skin. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things too is in the current meta with Marius, it's extra hard to bring squishy nukers even in Stone Skin because you can kill a squishy nuker through Stone Skin with Marius if you proc the if you proc the strip early on in his 3 hitting attack, or most of the time you pick 2 nukers and some good supports. So all like if it's half the time Armanz is getting banned, or you're gonna have to ban Armanz or whatever, so they're gonna bring in 2 nukers. I guess that's one thing we didn't talk about with the Marius build, and that's gonna depend on sort of everything else. But you definitely want your Marius speed tuned faster than all your other nukers.
Okay.
So we looked at that, and that's a 268. Yeah, so that's definitely faster than the Georgia we just looked at. How fast is your Taras?
265.
265. Okay, so Marius is a little bit quicker than that.
I think the
Nice.
only nuker that is faster than Marius is my Sun Wukong.
Sun Wukong.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do use Sun Wukong pretty frequently, just because he has the big speed aura, and
Yeah.
he's just generally a pretty good champion. Like in terms of survivability, he can survive most matchups. And then yeah, I got him pretty quick, 275.
Yeah.
What do you think about this build? Is it too fast? Should I just pump up more stats?
I would definitely want him to be slower than Marius if you're going to use the two of them together, for sure. Because if Marius can strip that stone skin and take off all the buffs, that can set up Wukong to do really well. The thing is, your Wukong is built in not in stone skin or anything, so odds are you're going to be looking to kill like after his revive, right? Is that what
Yeah,
happens most of the time, or
yeah, or or go first. Sometimes I do
okay?
go first. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, so when you go first, are you running mostly against like other slow go second teams? Is what's happening most of the time?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually,
Yeah,
but
fair enough.
sometimes there's surprises. Sometimes there's surprises. Like sometimes, like my warlord will sneak in there, and my warlord will be faster than I don't know, like the
Mhm.
enemy Yumiko or something. Like it's just kind of oh really? Like it's my warlord's pretty quick. I don't use him as much anymore, obviously with
Mhm.
mythicals and stuff. Yeah, he's 379, a little bit
Yeah.
low on the accuracy. Definitely feeling that nowadays, especially with the stat creep and stuff.
Yeah.
But I just made him super fast just so he can get in there. But yeah, he does pretty good. I don't pick him that often. I don't pick him early anymore. He used to
Yeah.
be like a for sure pick, almost all of the time. Carried me pretty hard, but I stopped building him up pretty early because obviously the mythical stuff was on the wall. So
Yeah.
I figured that his value would drop in a year, and it's been 14 months since mythical came, and yeah, his value definitely dropped for me, at least in live arena. So
Yeah. I mean, he's still probably one of my most used champions in Live Arena. My kind of go-to is because I run speed pretty much every time, like double speed lockout. So I run a lot of like Arbiter Kaja Warlord or Armanz Kaja Warlord. Um, and I think he's still really, really good. Like,
mhm.
yes, there's a lot of mythicals, but a number of the mythicals are still fairly susceptible to lockout. Things like Siegfried, for example. His form 1 is the main form. Even things like Galathir, if you lock out his revive and his cleansing and healing and all that kind of stuff, can be really strong. If you go first, you can lock out a Crixia and then she can reset, but that stops her from locking you out. So I still get a lot of value out of Warlord even in the mythical meta.
Yeah,
There's a
Sorry, I
Yeah.
think like your strategy would work because you go first so
Yeah.
often. Yeah. So when I pick Warlord and enemies counter it by picking like a really fast Yumiko or a really fast
Mm-hmm.
Prixia, and then I was like, now my Warlord's just kind of dead.
Yeah. One thing you could consider too, I think it's worth having a champion that can do this. And this is something you can work on over time as well. But having someone really, really fast in supersonic, and even better if you can have them really fast in supersonic and temporal chains, like a 6-star temporal chains, that can be a huge threat to anyone trying to go first. So yeah, I mean, you have a few champions that would be really good in that build. Warlord can be great. Armanz, that's how I build my Armanz, super, super fast and supersonic. Mikage isn't bad. I'm trying to see, I mean, I'm not sure what else is on your roster there that is sort of like those disruptor champions. You could even use someone that, that you're not currently using in live arena. If you've got the extra gear just as a potential option. So I'm trying to think who could be solid. I mean, Lady Kimmy isn't a terrible option because she'll bring that strip and that kind of stuff. Um,
Thinking about building out Gurgo just because he does bring
yeah,
a
Gurgo. I mean, you could even build like a CC Gurgo if you like just put him with a minimal amount of crit damage in a build like that. That would work. The supersonic thing, or you could just build Gurgo as a nuker. That's how mine's built. Definitely solid. But again, Gurgo is really squishy. So even if you put him in Stone Skin, I have the feeling you're gonna die to a lot of Marius
hmm.
kind of stuff. So
So you think
and
go fast with the Gurgo, like 300.
yeah, that's a potential option. Use him in speed teams. I mean, the nice thing about Gurgo too is he brings that speed aura. So one of the big problems with like a fast Siphi as your turn meter booster champion is she doesn't have a speed aura. So you need to figure out how to get that in your team. So Wukong, I mean, you already have Wukong, and he's a good option for that. Gurgo is a good option for that with that 30% speed aura.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, mostly I think most people are using Gurgo in go first teams. I don't see a lot of Gurgo in any kind of go second.
Okay. Okay, that's something to consider.
Although his passive is kind of nice. He's got that passive that gives you the percent chance to freeze. I haven't tried that against Marius a lot, but it does seem like it would have potential. I'm not sure. I think that would activate on every single one of his hits. So
Increase the damage.
potentially good option to interrupt a Marius and freeze him
Okay.
mid ability.
Cool.
But
Yeah.
I haven't tried it.
So yeah, it's
But you
probably
could,
some kind of fast hybrid build with accuracy. That's kind of what I was thinking.
yeah.
Would you go damage over like support?
It's kind of up to you. Probably, I would probably. I really don't like these kind of like hybrid supports that like the way I think about it is like you always kind of need at least two nukers, right? Otherwise, one of your nukers gets banned, and then you have no way to end the fight, unless you have Armanz. But that's a different story. So if you build him full support, then he basically takes up a support slot. Whereas if you build him as a nuker with some support capability, then you can use him as one of your two nukers. And if they ban your other nuker, you're not just completely, you know,
Mm-hmm.
with no options in terms of actually killing them. So that's kind of how I feel about Gurgo. But
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
I guess in the same kind of type of character. I used to like Ramontu a lot.
Hmm.
Because he brings the strip and he actually has, pretty good damage coming out of his A2. So I had him
Yeah.
built for a bit of damage with stone skin and decent accuracy, fast. But what do you think about Ramontu coming back? I mean, this build is, over a year old. So it probably pinpoint now, right? Like I would assume.
Yeah, you could put him in a fast pinpoint build. Again, he might be another option that's not terrible in Supersonic, because he does bring that block actives, which on enemies that don't have passive abilities, which could be potentially good as almost like a pseudo lockout. Um, and he brings the block passives, which can be really strong against some of the current things in the meta. It's
Mhm.
just tricky if you're using them as like cut-ins. So Yeah, kind of more of a go first speed team champion, but
Maybe with bombs.
has potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about like I have Nishak, but he has no blessings. Like I have Nishak here with no blessings.
Mm-hmm.
He would be kind of my only bomber, I think. I think I have Astrolith. I do have Astrolith.
Yeah.
But she needs support, right? She needs like the spreader to go with
Yeah,
her.
Astrolith is, I mean, people do use Astrolith in Live Arena. Not very many people, but there's a few that like fairly high rated players that use her regularly. But she is very tricky to use. I feel like if you're going to use Astrolith, you want to be weird. You don't just build her as like a regular nuker. You build her like a 400 speed like bomber that goes before their Galathier and puts up bombs on the Galathier because that can't be resisted and blows him up before he gets to take a turn. Like you do weird stuff like that. You don't just build her as like a generic bomber.
Cool.
But yeah, Nishak is very strong right now. He's it's a little bit tough because again, it's like kind of a go first strat. Like I use Nishak from time to time. I don't know. I kind of would always pick Marius over Nishak most of the time.
Mhm.
But he can do some good work for sure. It's going to be tough building him in a go second team because you're gonna kind of need to put him in Stone Skin, and then I guess you could build him pure bombs like Stone Skin and
Pinpoint.
Pinpoint. Yeah, but one of the things about Nishak that is a little underrated is just how hard he hits in terms of raw damage. Because he has the two abilities, like the A3 grants the extra turn and then he hits with the A2. His raw damage is insanely high. If you look at the multipliers between those two, it's like a 9 or something like that. Which is nuts. His base attack is kind of low, so that holds him back from doing as much damage as he potentially could. But I have mine built with like a little bit of accuracy, like around 300 accuracy to land the bombs on nukers, but not supports. And then I have him built like full damage, and surprisingly often he will just like kill the whole team with his raw damage
Oh,
before the bombs even go off, which surprises people because they think they can just like cleanse the bombs or whatever, and he can actually bring in raw damage, which can be really helpful. If they've got like a Galathier or something that can resist and then cleanse your bombs, that can be a huge problem. But if you've just got the damage to punch right through it and kill them without bombs, then that can be really helpful. So that's kind of how I like to build my Nishak. But obviously that means you need a way to get Nishak to actually take a turn, which means you got to go first.
yeah.
Otherwise, he's just way too
Arbiter.
squishy.
Arbiter. So plus attack, and then yeah, ideally plus
Yeah,
attack.
yeah. I would like, for me that would be like an Arbiter Kaja. Like most of the time when I use them, it's because someone took Marius, so I'll be like Arbiter Kaja, Warlord, Georgia, Nishak, and they'll ban my my Warlord, and then kind of Nishak will do the bombs like that. That's kind of how I use them. But that's like a go first strat.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Do you think he's worth investing in without any blessings, or do you think?
Oh, he's definitely a champion that is kind of blessing intensive. Again, like one of those nukers that also wants accuracy.
Yeah.
So I mean, mine's not super high blessed, and I still get good use out of him. So I don't think it's the worst idea for sure. I think the harder thing you're gonna have is like how do you use him in go second,
Yeah.
or non go first. But if you have an option to run go first, for sure. If like they're opening up with slow stuff, absolutely you can build a quick Nishak. We haven't really talked about speed tuning at all. I mean, like, I don't know. How often do you actually run go first strats? Do you do them like
If
ever, or is it pretty much always?
no, yeah, sometimes it depends on what they pick, right? So
Mhm.
I throw my Arbiter in there. So right now she's fastest champion on this, fastest geared.
Mhm.
I think she's about four something. She's 400 right now, but it's
400.
because she's using this. Sorry, it's because she's using this perception set for the accuracy against the Odin event stage.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
had her with more accuracy. But if I take these out and I put in the speed set, she'll be around 411. So
Mhm.
sometimes I bring her in, and then with Siphi and Armanz, or with Siphi and Lockout, then they can be pretty strong. But then, of course, if they ban like my Arbiter, then I lose the speed aura and I lose the big turn meter boost. So
Yeah.
I find that the speed aura is hard to jam into my team. Like that's why like Wukong's so important. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So
so
you could make a really, if you wanted to run a go first strat, that's very strong. You could do like a Siphi Arbiter Armanz Marius Gergo, for example,
yeah.
which would be really good. And then Gergo would cover that speed aura if they ban the Arbiter.
Yeah.
Um, so that would kind of be like what I would be thinking if I was going first. And then you could also replace the Marius with the Nishak as well. So
Okay.
that would be like if you were going up against a Go Seconds team that you really wanted to deal with the Stone Skin, right? That could be a potential option because they're probably going to have to ban your Armons in that scenario, which means the Nishak can make it through and drop bombs on the whole enemy team. Blow up.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah, but Gurgo definitely like I identified like kind of a priority champion that I want to build out. It's just how to build it. But yeah, I think some damage and super fast. At least I'd say at least 300 speed maybe, and then it's whether to
yeah,
have stone skin or not. And it sounds like probably no stone skin. If you're just making him super fast. So
yeah,
yeah, that sounds okay.
yeah. You
Blessing,
can
you take
blessing. He's not the. It depends.
probably sheep, right? It's got accuracy.
Yeah, I mean, because you want to build him with accuracy, I have mine in polymorph. It's weird because he's like a champion that you mostly want to use in go first teams, so
Yeah.
you probably won't be getting debuffed a lot if things go well, but things don't always go well. Or you kill their nukers, but then their Galathirs out there, whatever. He's probably not gonna have enough accuracy to get a Galathir, but you get the idea. Um, so yeah, polymorph isn't the worst blessing on him because you want to build him with accuracy anyway.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds good.
Other options, I mean, you could put him in. Shoot,
Chains?
what's the name of the blessing? What's that?
Chains?
Yeah, you could maybe put him in chains. I feel like chains is okay, but it really gets a huge boost at 6-star because of that. That's when it starts doing the turn meter pushback. I was thinking if you're just trying to pump his damage, you could put him in. Is it Nature's Wrath, which is the one that
Oh,
gives him
yeah. Nature's Wrath.
uh yeah, damage based on the number of debuffs. He does put out a lot of debuffs. I mean, he's putting out freeze and he's putting out decreased defense on everyone. So
Cool, cool. Yeah, that
that maybe
sounds
has some potential. I don't know. I haven't looked at like the actual math behind that for him
mhm.
to see if that
Okay.
makes the most sense. But
Cool.
it's a
Yeah, I'm
potential option.
excited to check him out. I'm just doing the masteries on him right now. So
Nice.
definitely gonna try him out. How about let's talk about let's just change gears a bit. Let's talk about nuker. So I glanced on Georgia. Georgia's actually like my fourth most used DPS champion. So my top three DPS champion is Rhodos, Taras, and Harima. So what do you think about using the DPS like in the current meta nowadays, and what kind of build like is favorable? Like I guess stone
Yeah.
skin.
So George it is really good because he's one of the most reliable ways to deal with the things that are super meta right now, like Commodus, for example, can be a very, very difficult champion to deal with because your people are building him in Stone Skin with Pinpoint, right? So you can't polymorph him, you can't with like an Armanz, you can't. I mean, you can try and bomb him, but it's sketchy because there's lots of cleansers and stuff in the game, and he's the best bomb champion. So if he's already taken, then I mean, not that you or I have him, but still. Um, so Georgia can be a great option to deal with that. He can be a great option to deal with Gizmac. I mean, he's a great option to deal with basically all of these nukers that you need to kill through Stone Skin, these mythicals that you can't lock out with a warlord or do anything with a bit. Again, the problem is like go first. Like he's so squishy, and with Marius in the meta, I have a hard time imagining. Well, maybe if you have him like protected by Nekrit or something, you got to bring in supports that are going to keep him alive. Like just putting him in Stone Skin is not going to be enough
Yep.
because of that. And then in like the Stone Skin build, it's like how much value are you really getting out of that? Because the main reason you want to pick Georgid is to punch through the enemy's Stone Skin. But if you're using him to take a turn or like to go after they've already taken a turn, they're not in Stone Skin anyway. So at least the nukers aren't because they're only in one turn most of the time. So I question how much value you get out of a slow Stone Skin Georgid versus like a fast one. But you do say you use him a lot. So when you use him a lot, how are you using him?
Usually if I see like UDK If I need to kill like UDK, for example, or if I have the plus attack champion on my team, so for example, like Arbiter,
Hmm.
then I, obviously value him a little bit more. But I try to use him against obviously like Stone Skin, a Stone Skin champion. But he's kind of like more like a generalist, and he is like my fourth best DPS, but he's kind of like an option if my other options are taken. So if
I
that makes
see.
sense,
Hmm.
yeah. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Like UDK is usually like I hate seeing UDK with Georgia because they're all in reaction.
yeah.
Or at least the well built ones are going to be in reaction. Yeah, I mean, um I would think about sort of using him in a very different style team than you would use your other nukers. I assume your main nukers that you're talking about are things like your Rotos and your Taurus and
Yeah,
your
so
Harima.
so usually right now my top three is like it's actually like Marius. And so Marius gets picked like basically almost every
Oh
fight.
yeah. Yeah, for
And
sure.
then he takes up a DPS slot, and then the second DPS slot would maybe go to Wukong or Harima or Taras. So it's one of
Okay.
those three usually, and then I guess now like Georgia would be after those champions would be
Okay.
considered, unless I have a very specific idea to go with him. But Harima definitely gets picked a lot, and Taras obviously gets picked a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so or should I be picking
Gotcha.
Wukong more? I don't know. It's I think in
Yeah, I'm trying to I mean, I think you're gonna get I don't think you're gonna get a ton of value out of Georgia in slow stone skin these days. I mean, I've never seen Georgia in slow stone skin these days. Um, but I don't know because maybe things are different at your level. Like at my level, like he's gonna like a Marius is pretty much gonna kill him in the first turn, even if he's in stone skin. Um, and so yeah, like using him instead of Harima or Taurus or something like that seems kind of like I'm not sure how you actually keep him alive and get him to take a turn.
yep.
But maybe that's working for you. So I don't know. Like if it's working for you, by all means keep going. But I imagine I feel like I feel like my Georgid would probably I would want to build Georgid speed tuned with the go first champions.
Okay.
So like you could look at well, I guess yeah. I'm not sure if Deadwood's arena calculator it hasn't been updated in a long time, but it probably has Georgia, Siphi, and Arbiter. So like, look at the speeds of those champions. Look at how fast your Georgia needs to go
Yep.
to be in line with those, and then build them that fast if you can. I
Mhm.
would probably be my go-to, and using him in a go first. The other thing about Georgia that I think people sometimes sleep on is his A2 does unresistible turn meter pushback. And that can be really nice to make sure that no one cuts in between your Georgia and your second nuker. So a lot of times I have my teams constructed in such a way that I have my 2 turn meter boosters go, and then Georgia goes, and then that decreased turn meter that he does on his A2 is what my then follow-up nuker is calculated based on like how
Okay.
fast they need to be after I push back the turn meter by 20%.
Okay. Cool.
And I mean, that's one potential option. Again, this is mostly go first kind of strats, but I think he's a much better go first champion. So that's probably what I would be thinking
Okay.
for
Yeah,
sure.
maybe. Yeah, definitely. Maybe I'll make him like 300 speed or whatever, and just make him
Yeah.
take off the stone skin. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
that's probably what I would be going for. And then using him when like I think you're gonna find it's really hard to go second in the current meta, it feels like, especially as you get higher up because
Hmm.
of Marius, because of Gizmak, because of Commodus. They just have so many ways to deal with Stone Skin and shut down everything on your team, right?
Hmm.
So
So,
I think having an option to kind of go in with a
mhm.
Georgia could be good
Okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I would maybe try something different with him compared to the other guys. What do you think about Taras and Harima? Should you build them in stone skin as well, or
for you.
they're pretty tanky
Probably
DPS? Like,
probably not. Um, I think reaction can be a good option. I mean, Taurus is pretty hard to kill by himself. It depends. I guess it always kind of depends on what kind of gear you have.
Mhm.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Yeah,
Oh,
true.
but you've got him in Merciless,
Yeah.
so you'd have to give that up. Yeah. I think if you can get him in Stone Skin, again, it depends on how you want to use them. Taurus in particular, I think, is a little. Well, I'm trying to think. Like Taurus can, because he's an HP based nuker, he can do things like he might not die to certain bomb champions even in Stone Skin. Um, so like a Nishak, for example, might not actually hit hard enough. I don't know. Actually, I don't have Taurus, so I haven't used him a lot, but I
Mhm.
would imagine he might be able to tank it anyway, especially if there's some bolster on the team. Um,
Yeah,
but
like
reaction
yeah.
is also really strong as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like right now like have him in Merciless.
Hmm.
It does quite a bit of damage, of course, with the plus 35 instead of the lethal plus 25.
Yeah.
Um, but I mainly consider this set for him for Hydra because I use him for Hydra. So the Merciless set
Yeah, that's
definitely
fair.
boosted his damage there as well. So it's just like a double duty type of build.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
I was thinking like maybe put him in Stone Skin, but I'm like, oh, it's Taras. Like he doesn't really need, extra survivability. Like, and then just yeah, I guess you could go, more reaction and then just lethal, but then you lose the extra 10%. But I don't know. The attack also hurts him as well, like the plus attack. The plus
Hmm.
attack here hurts him a bit, especially with his A2 sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, up in the air a little bit. Same thing with yeah, Harima. Same thing with Merciless. I have her in like kind of like a split duty, right? Like I use her for Hydra. This is a really good build for Hydra, but for Arena, it's a little bit slow, and obviously, the stats are decent on her.
Yeah,
A little
damage
bit
is
slow.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
damage is good.
speed is gonna be rough.
Yeah,
But damage is good.
yeah, good damage, but a little
Yeah.
bit slow. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things the Stone Skin can help you with is protecting you from like turn meter depletion and stuff as well, especially when they're that slow. When you're going up against like the current stuff in the meta with these really, really fast players, I mean, they'll easily take like 3 or 4 turns before that Prima gets to go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Especially if they're dropping like turn meter pushback and that kind of thing. So I don't know. But like one of the things, it kind of depends on what you want to do. One of the things that I've been doing a lot recently is I have like very, very niche picks that I only use against like very specific ultra endgame kind of accounts. And that can be nice if you have champions that like could potentially be useful, but you don't want to like but that you're not using them for other like PvE content that you want to mess up, right? Like you have your Harima, but you want to use her in Hydra, and so you don't want to like change her build to make it worse. Sometimes you can build those other options. So I don't know if there's anyone like in your vault or anything like that you're not using at all that could be potentially built as an option for countering like very specific things.
Oh,
So
I
now you
see.
got Timid.
Yeah,
So I've been using Timid. Timid's kind of interesting.
yeah.
Um, I mean, I say that, but there is some value in like high HP force based nukers right now because of Commodus.
Commodus, yeah.
So like for example, you could build if you've got like extra gear and you've got the resources, you could build a Timid that you kind of like only use against Commodus, right? And that kind of thing. And actually, Timid's probably not your best option because you don't have Kaja, but or maybe you're not using Kaja. Versulf maybe.
I have Carnage like coming up as well. Just another option. Not that it matches your
Yeah,
go-to,
Carnage
right?
is an interesting one. He's so stat intensive
Yeah.
that before you get a blessing, it's hard to use him effectively. Um,
Yeah.
do you have Mortu built at all?
Nope.
I see you have one down
I
there.
do. I do have a Mortu somewhere. I think he's 60. Here he is. Yeah. He's not
Oh, there
built.
you go.
Yeah, he's not built. Not booked. But I
Oh
think
yeah, Mortu has come back into the meta hard.
versus
Because
Marius, right?
versus Marius.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
nice.
So I would definitely want to build a Mortu for sure.
Okay.
And he's HP based nuker again, so can be useful against those bomb teams, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think adding Mortu to your roster to counter Marius is huge. If you see someone pick Marius before you can get him, and you throw in like a Harima and a Mortu, they're going to be in big trouble.
Okay.
You pick the Harima so that they can't pick the Harima against the Mortu.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like those two, and then like throw in some bolster or something. That can be.
How to build more to in 2024?
I would probably just build them. Yeah, stone skin.
Super slow.
Like the same builds, not
build.
too slow, because you don't want people lapping you over and over and over again. Like people are so fast these days that I would still probably try and get him like to at least 200, but like 220.
Okay.
It's probably good. He's definitely a champion that can afford to be slower than most things, but I wouldn't make him like super slow.
Okay, cool. Yeah, good spot there. Good spot.
Yeah. Mortu is seeing a lot more play because of Marius, so that would be a great option.
Anybody else? I recently got Lamasu. I got her. So I don't know
you got her already. Oh, yeah. Wow, nice.
Yep, I got her.
She's a tricky one to use in arena. Let's see. So she well, I'm trying to remember her kit. Like she gives the turn meter boost and reset on her A3, right?
Yeah.
Resets the cooldowns, all their skills, removes all debuffs, and fills turn meter. Yeah. There's some potential there, I think. I don't know. It's kind of hard because it's single target, but
yeah. I think she might be more for PvE, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do love that she can't be sheeped. I love that she has the speed aura, but she's a little bit tricky. Actually, well, okay, one thing you could do that could be kind of fun, if you're not using her for anything else, is like the supersonic cut-in strat. You could use that with her, right? And then she could cut in before the enemy and then give a fat turn meter boost to your nuker and let them go first. You could do something like that with her. If she had like immunity to lockout or something, that
I was just thinking
that would make it like really good, because then you could like counter that and like reset your nuker or something.
But I guess the other way is to build her with high resistance, but that's
I was gonna say that's not a terrible way to do it either. Like build her as a high resist. But do you have a Kymar or anything like that?
I do have a Kymar.
He would be. I don't know. You might be using him for PvE. You might not want to mess with his build, but
PvE. Right now.
High res Kymar is definitely potential in live arena to counter lockout.
Yeah, I don't really want to break up Kymar here. He's basically like in a bunch of my dungeon teams, but this one build covers it all, so I don't really want to mess. I don't use him for arena, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's not a bad option. Like if you need, I mean, I'm not sure if how your teams are speed tuned. If you just need him to be like faster than everyone else, he's another option that would be great for like fast supersonic.
Okay.
To cut in and strip and sleep everyone.
Okay, cool.
So if you need him to be fast.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, lots of great ideas, man. Any like unsung heroes here? Like you mentioned Mortu, that was a great spot. I use Tormund once in a while. I don't know if Tormund's in the thing now. If he's
I mean, who did I beat the other day? I beat someone in like the top 10 the other day using Tormund, and that was like the first time I'd used Tormund in forever, because I also have him, but I never use him. But I was just like, I know I can't beat this guy in the speed race, so I'm just going to throw Tormund in, and then he throws their turn meter booster and got me the win, and I was like, hell yeah. But I never use him, but sometimes that's what you need. So I think he's definitely a good option to have built that you can pull in if you need him, and he can be one of those things where it's like, oh, they're running a go first strat against you, and you put Tormund, and now they're just like completely screwed. Like they have to ban Tormund. So I think it's worth having him be in a decent build, but I wouldn't be like pulling gear off of Harima or Marius to put it on Tormund. You know what I mean? I see a few other champions that I think have a place in live arena. So Brassclad right next to your mouse right there. He could be very solid, especially since you've got good increased defense champions. You've got Siphi, you've got Marius. The main thing you like about Brassclad is that passive, which prevents an ally from getting killed. That is super strong against Siegfried, because that's how Siegfried basically wrecks you, is by killing one ally and spreading the damage. So you can bring in Brassclad as a really good counter to Siegfried.
Okay, cool.
So it's worth, I would build him again as like a nuker with a little bit of accuracy because he's got that stun. Stone Skin is like Stone Skin Savage would be ideal if you've got it, but
Okay, cool.
don't necessarily have to. But yeah, he's a good option.
Yeah.
There's some other, I mean, there's some champions I love that I don't necessarily know, like Stultus, for example. I really like Stultus, but
He's
I use him kind of as a generalist. I don't know if you would get a ton of value out of him in live arena. Conjure can be kind of useful because he veils himself.
for turn meter.
And that can be nice to prevent getting sheeped by a Armanz or just being controlled by Armanz in general. He's up there next to like 2 over from the Stultus. There you
Okay, yeah.
go.
He's
Yeah,
built
I'd
up.
probably want him in Stone Skin. Because a big part of what you're going to want to do is not get controlled by Armanz. That's kind of one of the big things. So
Okay.
yeah, he has a place. I haven't been using Mountain King, but I do wonder if there's any value in him because of Odin. Odin puts up the block damage, and I believe Mountain King's A3 hits through block damage, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Yeah.
block damage. Okay.
Yeah, so I haven't been using him, but I've been thinking about it. Again, also because of Commodus force HP based nukers. So, and Mountain King has very high base HP, so he might be a good champion for you to just pump HP really high to get it above the Commodus threshold to activate the bombs.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
So
Okay.
yeah, I haven't actually used that at all, but it's something I've had on my radar because of Odin and because of Commodus.
What about Fatalis for an HP
Oh, I love
based
Fatalis.
HP
Yes,
based nuker?
Yeah, I can't believe we didn't talk about Fatalis.
Yeah.
I love Fatalis. He's fantastic. I know, he gets a lot of hate because people try and use him against UDK, and he's not good against UDK. But he's great for taking out squishy nukers and Stone Skin. Like that's his thing, kind of. It's basically like I want someone who isn't gonna die and can kill someone who's in Stone Skin. So imagine like I'm sitting here and they've got a Taurus and Marichka, and they throw a Lazarius up, and they've got, some champion I have to ban, right? And so I'm in a tough spot where it's like I would love to bring in Georgia to kill the Lazarius through the Stone Skin. I can't use bombs because of Marichka. But if I use Georgia, he's just going to die over and over and over again to the A1s from the Marichka and Taurus if I, assuming I lock him out or whatever, right? Fatalis can come in there and basically kill the squishy nuker like a Lazarius through Stone Skin, and then also not die to A1s from anything else and that kind of thing. And if you can get him around to take 3 turns so that he can use his secret ability, that hits really hard as well. So yeah, I actually like Fatalis. I use him a decent bit. Not a ton, but
I've been surprisingly like wrecked by him once in a while too. So whenever I see him, whenever I see somebody use him, I'm like, man, this guy's probably decked out. Like his Fatalis is probably nuts. I probably can't kill him.
Yeah. He does need like kind of insane gear because his damage is so low that you really need like him well built to actually be able to kill something like a Lazarius through Stone Skin. But if you can do it, it can be nice. And if they don't bring any counters to Fatalis, you could run into a situation where like literally the whole team just can't kill him.
Yeah.
Like if they don't have any strips, or like if their damage is kind of weak or whatever, like he just he won't die.
Yep. Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's definitely something. Like we were talking about earlier about how like, I picked Georgid when they take my my Taurus and my Rhodos and everything else. Like my go-to would be like Fatalis would be a way better pick in that scenario than Georgid would.
I see. Just like a generalist, right? Generalist.
Yeah, generalist. Like if you're using me and go first teams to counter Stone Skin, that's great. Yeah. Also, I have mine built in reaction. You can build them in if you have Divine Life or Divine or any Divine set. Basically, that shield. If you don't have any bolster on the team or anything, that shield will count as a shield. It's like a self-placed shield, which will activate as passive. So you can kind of get like a reaction style build where he can't be crit.
Yeah.
Unless they strip the shield, of course. So
yeah.
But
cool. Yeah. Yeah, maybe something. Yeah, he's not blessed, so that kind of keeps me away from him a little bit in terms of like,
Yeah,
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 just being.
getting that 4-star for the crit damage is huge on him.
Yeah, so it's really tough. Like pivoting away from champions for the blessing is it's just really tough to handle because the resources is so hard to come by.
Mhm.
Okay, just to I guess wrap it up a little bit. You mentioned, the DPS, the supports. Uh, what do you think would be like your pick order, I guess, to wrap it up if you were to use like my roster? Um, Obviously Armanz. Would Siphi be
Yeah,
your second pick kind of thing, or and how would you use the champions that I have? Would you just go pure speed? I guess that's kind of gear
yeah.
dependent.
My I think if I had your roster, I'm just spitballing here. I would I would be looking to go Armon Siphi. I would try and get your Armons. Hmm, I guess probably in the Stone Skin build. So one of the things about Go First is you kind of need like 2 intimidating presence, otherwise they can just ban one, and you don't have the 6 stars. So I think going first a lot of times is going to be tough. So yeah, probably I would have Armon Siphi as like top picks. Um, and then based on what the enemy was doing, like you could either throw your Arbiter in to make a speed team, like have Siphi be the kind of second, the follow up, because you need kind of 2 speed boosters to get your nukers to go. Otherwise, they have to be insanely fast. So you could have like your Arbiter faster than your Siphi and not necessarily like be the pick with her. But you could throw her in if you want to go speed. And then if you don't want to go speed, you could be looking at like Taurus, UDK, Nekrit, that kind of thing, and kind of make your decision based on what the enemy is throwing out.
Mhm.
I would have the Georgid be speed tuned with the Arbiter Siphi so that um, you can go Arbiter Siphi Georgid nuke if you're running a go first, like against a Gizmac or a Commodus or something like that. That could be a solid option. Um, Gurgo, similar kind of idea where you can strip and freeze and all that kind of stuff. Marius, ideally, I mean, like ideally you want to make Marius like your fastest nuker that's also speed tuned with your go first
Oh
champions,
wow.
and then also in Stone Skin, and also has accuracy. Like
Yeah.
he's so you want like so many stats on him. I was super lucky. Like the only good soul I've ever pulled was a 6-star Marius
Oh
soul.
my goodness.
Because I don't buy soul or soul stones or anything either.
Yeah.
And like I've never gotten anything good except for that, and that was the only thing. And I was just
Right.
like, oh my god, that's a game changer.
Nice.
So yeah, that's why kind of why he's so stat intensive, because he wants to be really fast. He wants to be the fastest nuker on your account. So ideally, you'd have him be faster than the Georgid, so that he can strip the Stone Skin before the Georgid goes. But that might not be realistic, because I think you do also want him in Stone Skin because you want to use him in go second team sometimes as well, and you don't want him to die. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, so just a quick so you'd say Marius would be the number one DPS pick. I honestly right now I am picking him kind of like number one. Um what would be the second one? And that would maybe be dependent on what your opponent picks.
yeah. So I really, really use my nuker. Like I kind of have the same supports I use the vast majority of the time. I have like 3 or 4 supports that I use almost every single fight, unless I have to do something way outside what I normally run. And then I use my nukers to sort of counter what they're picking. So Marius is going to be great if well, there's 2 things with Marius. One, he's great in go first teams to strip the stone skin, but also if you're running go second teams, you might really, really not want the enemy to get Marius, because that's going to be one of their best counters to use. So you might be picking him just because he's a decent nuker in stone skin, and you really don't want your enemy to have him.
Right.
If you're running go second.
Right.
And I mean, he's strong in go second anyway because of like the counter attacks and all that kind of stuff, like when people turn meter boost with or whatever,
Yeah. It's passive.
or push the turn meter back, that kind of thing. So yeah, um, I think Marius is really good. But yeah, it would totally be just like what's the enemy picking. If they're picking a lot of mythicals, obviously Marius is really good to counter that. He pairs really well with like a warlord, for example. We were talking about mythicals. You can't lock them out, but if you can lock out and then force them to swap, like that
It's
kind of thing
true.
can work.
That's true.
Um, But yeah, mostly I would be picking if I was running go first, I'd be picking Marius to strip their stone skin so I can kill their like critical nukers, like their Lazarius or their Commodus or whatever that's going to kill me. I would be picking him to deal with that. If I was running go first. If I was be running go second, I'd mostly just be trying to stop my enemy from getting him and using him to strip all the buffs and everything to set up my follow-up nuker.
Okay. Okay,
So
cool.
yeah.
And then your secondary nuker is just basically catered to whatever
Yeah,
they pick.
I would really be using your nuker picks to counter what they're doing. So if they go Marius, you know, you could go we could go Mortu. Yeah, sorry. I was trying to remember his name. Like you could go Mortu to counter that. If they go Siegfried or Wukong or Rhodos, you know, you want to throw your Harima up. Horus if you just want someone, you know, who's not going to die and can deal good damage, that kind of thing. UDK. Yeah, we didn't really talk about UDK at all, but he's great against
the three that you just mentioned. Rhodos,
yeah.
Siegfried and Wukong.
Siegfried, yeah, exactly. Same things that Harima's good against. So yeah, that's kind of what I would be thinking.
Okay, yeah, man. Like so much food for thought here. Like it's you know, it's way more than what I was expecting you to go over. You know, I was just expecting you to just like grill my builds and say add 50 speed to this and, you know, get some blessings to this. And but yeah, you gave me a lot to think about, especially like with Fatalis and Mortu. And obviously I'm gonna, you know, lean a little bit harder on building out that Gurgo. And then Georgid. Yeah, I'm gonna rethink that a little bit. I find that my supports are a little bit lacking. Like I do use like Ancora a little bit just to deal with like lockouts, getting locked out myself. I do use Mithrala a little bit as well. Like she's just in, you know, just kind of a generic stone skin build. But she's okay. But yeah, the shields really hurt. Like I have trouble fighting against Narcisse Ancora sometimes. Not too sure if you have any pointers against Narcisse Ancora.
Yeah, Narcisse Ancora. I mean, Fatalis is really good against Narcisse because Narcisse can't break his shield or anything. So it's basically impossible for Narcisse to kill Fatalis. Well, I mean, he can do it, but it takes a long time. But that's more of a, I don't know. That's more of a like just like tanky option. Yeah.
Usually, like if those two show up, I try to ban Narcisse if I can. But obviously, if Wukong's there, then I'm sorry, if Armanz is there, then Armanz gets banned. And then I play against Sosu, and it's pretty tough at that point. Then I'll try to lock them out, but obviously Ancora.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Narcisse and Ancora is they're usually built and go second teams. So like if I actually don't really have much problem with Narcisse and Ancora, what I would do is just run like Arbiter, Siphi, Marius, Georgid, strip the stone skin, kill the Narcisse with the Georgid, kill everyone, and then ideally you have someone built in Life Harvest. And then when the Narcisse gets revived, it like depletes his max HP and then he just becomes a noodle and doesn't do anything. So that's one way. I mean, that's the way I deal with them.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I try to aim to do. Try to lock him out, try to go first, and then sometimes I'll just bring the Taras in because he probably has the strongest AoE, and then I'll try to like stomp them if they don't have stone skin, right? But of course, if they have stone skin, then I'm kind of hooped. But yeah,
I mean, you've got Warlord for the lockout, and they're definitely. I mean, she can reset him, but that's definitely not a bad option. Again, like they're mostly used in go second teams, so I would try and counter it with like a more go first strategy because their Narcisse is very good against go second teams, because of the way his kit works. So yeah, I would try to be thinking about like how to deal with them with a go first. Like honestly, like if you could run, actually you could do something like if you get first pick and you can do like Armanz, Siphi, Warlord, Wukong, or some other speed aura, Gurgo, that kind of thing, and then like Marius or just any other, like any nuker basically. If you could just make that pairing of Armanz, Siphi, Warlord with a speed aura, against an Ancora Narcisse, you can guarantee you're going to get lockout into the fight. And yes, the Ancora could reset the Narcisse, but it's not guaranteed, and there's a decent chance you can get a kill on the Narcisse before it gets a turn if you have like Marius or a Georgid or someone to get through Stone Skin if he's built in that.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Or
Yeah.
even he could use a bombs too, because if you
Oh yeah.
lock out the Ancora, then
Oh yeah. Yeah.
you use like Nishak or something. So.
Yeah, Marius definitely made me feel a little bit more comfortable playing against that with the strip and stuff. So, yeah, definitely something to work on. I mean, the Georgid, yeah, and then the Georgid fast, and then the Gurgo with the strip could be useful as well, like just to deal with like stone skin stuff. But I think like even for me, like just issues dealing with stone skin teams. So, and my best bomb champion is this 6-star that I pulled for Gaius, and I don't think he's really super useful. I think like he's useful.
Yeah,
but
the problem is that his bombs take so long to activate.
yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
maybe not. Maybe I'll take another look at that Nishak even without the blessing. Try to make him work maybe, but yeah. Anyways, Biohack took a lot of your time. Thank you so much for stopping by and obviously giving your expertise, especially for my roster. Obviously like that's a wealth of information that's happening right now. And yeah, obviously with your experience and games played in the live arena, you bring a lot of that. You obviously do a lot of live arena content. So for everybody that's watching, make sure you guys check out Biohack. And if you guys are into live arena, there's not many that are better than Biohack in terms of just learning from him and watching some of his cool strategies and stuff. So make sure you guys drop him a follow. Make sure you guys drop him a subscribe. Biohack, if you have anything last words to say to the viewers.
No, I think yeah, this was really fun. Thanks for having me on. It's great. I think are we still gonna try and do like a live arena session live over on my channel? Is that the plan?
That's right. We're gonna be doing a live arena session where basically Biohack's gonna be piggybacking off of me while I basically fumble around looking like a goof, but it's gonna be fun. Make sure you guys check out that video on his channel as well. Once again, Biohack, if you got no other words, thank you so much for popping by, and we'll see you guys on his channel for that video as well. So see you guys.